I always wanted to serve on a jury.
I'm really super excited to be here, so I really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Creating this whole trial, Daddy.
I want to give a big shout out to the 13th Jury Podcast and Brandi.
Yeah, I applaud you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Every time you run into Bill Barber, you should reach for it.
And then I just looked to the jury, and it's sort of like, look.
I was in the eye of the storm, and you guys were watching the storm.
Hey, if you're bored of work, come pop in and say, hey, we'll have some coffee.
You are a ray of sunshine, and I love what you've done with your YouTube channel.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I almost lost track of time because I have been working on getting some stuff together. Oh, let me get this. I'm just behind on everything. I was trying to get some of the Karen Reed stuff together from what we just watched. And so I lost track of time. Happens. So now I got to get everything ready. We have, let me see, let me pop out, see if that works. Yep, there we go. Look at me go. All right, change my settings. I should have done all this before, but like I said, I've been busy, y'all. So we have the status hearing for Scott Peterson is going to be coming on any minute. And I mean, that is huge. So I would like to watch that for a moment before we get into, I should have gotten myself some more water. Before we get into our trial day. So I have that up and ready. So as soon as they start showing it, we can watch. I believe I read last night that he's going to be showing on Zoom, but that may have changed because it looked like he may be in the courtroom. I guess Lucy's tired of being on camera because she's like right here. So she's laying like right outside of her little area where she should be showing. But that's okay. The hearing for Karen Reed, I'm sitting here getting some stuff together for it now, putting some key points together. If you missed it, you should definitely watch it. If you haven't followed this case, it is insanity, and you should definitely follow it. Careful talking about it on Twitter, though, because Twitter's wild. Twitter's wild, y'all. Let's see. On my way to into work, while Brandi was talking, that I just wish Scott would just go away, but then she reminded me that it's good to keep an open mind. I have an open mind. I'm not convinced either way. I have an open mind. I feel like, they say they have evidence, that's exculpatory. There are some things that were done wrong. There are some things that I'm definitely questioning now. There's really not, the majority of the evidence has to do with his weird behavior after, and obviously it's circumstantial. You can prove a circumstantial case, though. It is possible. We've seen it done more often than not. So it is definitely possible, but I've always got an open mind. So we'll hear what all they have to say and see what happens. But like I said, no matter what we think about anybody, even the worst of the worst deserve a fair trial. I think we can all agree on that. So we'll see what they have to say about it. Let's see. Oh, yes. Come in. Take your seat. Oh, I guess I could take Lucy off of here since she apparently doesn't want to be on camera right now. Yes, there is a lot. Hi, Shireen. Lots going wrong in Scott Peterson trial. Yeah, you know what was weird about it? I started kind of digging into this based on some stuff that one of my friends sent me, and there was so much that I did not know, because remember, this is before, I won't say it's before they were streaming trials, but this trial did not stream live. So everything that we heard from it was from talking panels. Think about some of the trials that we've watched, and think about some of the reporting that we heard on them, and how wrong it was, or how skewed it was one way or the other. And think about how many things we've heard as we've watched the entire trial. Think about how many things we've heard people get wrong on those panels. So when I started looking at all this, I was like, dang, okay, yeah, they didn't have the trial streaming. I didn't, so obviously didn't watch the whole thing, and relied on national media coverage and panels and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I know that they can get it wrong. Maybe I should keep an open mind. I started going through a lot of the court stuff and interviews with jurors and all kinds of things. And I was like, okay, this isn't exactly what I thought. So my mind is open. We'll see. I'm not convinced one way or the other. But it's always good to have an open mind. Legally Blonde, member for 1 whole month. This is my favorite place to be. Thank you for being you. Cheers to 1 month. Cheers to 1 month. Happy 1 month anniversary. Happy. Flies by. Yes, Scott. He was convicted of killing his pregnant wife. And this happened. She went missing Christmas Eve, my birthday. She went missing on my 20th birthday. And I was pregnant. Well, I wasn't pregnant when she went missing, but I got pregnant and found out I was pregnant, as all of this stuff was happening. So when they found her and Connor's bodies, at that point I had already known I was pregnant, and it hit me so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. It was so just heartbreaking. And I ended up naming my child after Connor, their child, because he never got to have his life. So I thought that was really sad. Either way, I'm still not a Scott Peterson fan because he's a lying, cheating jerk, but we'll see. Okay, so Silly Pick, thank you for the super chat. Way off topic, but will we ever have a collaboration with you and Grizzly True Crime? I love her. She's so great. Yeah, we might make that happen one day when we're covering, maybe we're covering some of the same trials, or when we do something, we might have to do that. I love her. She's wonderful. And thank you for the super chat. Thank you. I keep looking to make sure it's not starting. I'm kind of holding out for us to start on the openings for this because I want to watch the Scott Peterson thing, and it's supposed to start any minute, and they are, I believe they have cameras in there so we can actually watch. Yeah, his ability to lie is terrifying. And the thing is he's so, even if he's innocent, they say that they have exculpatory evidence that will exonerate him. LA Innocence Project says that. Even if they do, I am still not going to be a fan, because he, the lies that he told, and even the whole, fake trip to Europe thing, and, cheating on his pregnant wife and all of that. He's not likable at all. So, but I'm all for justice, and if a wrong person is convicted, that's not justice. So I can still dislike him for being a lying, cheating butthead if they, prove his innocence. So, like I said, my mind is open. This is very true. Gypsy's mom says, I'll play devil's advocate and say, just because you are a liar doesn't make you a murderer. That is very true. There are a lot of people who are, sleazy and have affairs and stuff like that. But it does not make them a murderer. Some of the things that were reported were false and skewed, and seeing some of the stuff that really happened, I was like, okay, so that explains this and this and this and makes it make a lot more sense. But some of the stuff I think is still really suspicious. So we will see what they come up with. Scott Peterson has a website where they put up the exonerating evidence. After reading just what they presented, it was obvious to me that he's guilty. His family is delusional. I did that poll on Twitter, and it's like overwhelming. 90-something% believe he's guilty. And then I was trying to do some research for this because I started looking into it. And so I started asking people, okay, what is your source of your information? Because for me, the source of my information was national media, because that's how I, got all of the information when I was watching it. And most people, it was national media, because that's all we had at the moment. So, but my mind's open. I am Captivating85. Hello, best community ever. You're the best. Thank you so much, Jura, for 9 whole months. 9 whole months. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Yeah, most people think he's guilty. Most people think the jury got it right. But nobody watched the trial, so none of us really know, which is why, like I said, I'll keep my mind open, hear what they have to say. One good thing about it, coming up like this, is if he does get a new trial, we'll actually hear it all for ourselves instead of, possibly, instead of relying on Nancy Grace. Let's see. Yeah, as we know, the national media is not necessarily to be trusted. We know that's true. We totally know that's true. Okay, so I want to talk about this. Okay, so Intolerant says the Innocence Project is a hogwash money scheme. I thoroughly disagree, because they do it pro bono, but I thoroughly disagree. But Peterson was found guilty because he is. I suggest we look closer at the Innocence Project and let the juries do their job. Okay, so this though is the whole reason that one of the reasons he's potentially getting a new trial, though, because the jury, they're letting the juries do their job in this case is what kind of screwed everything up. There's a lot of issues with this jury, so, and there's a lot of issues. Dined over 20 gifted a membership. Thank you. It went to Carrie K. Carrie K, welcome to the green side. As much as I like Nancy Grace, she always seems to be tilted on the prosecution side. She definitely is, but also, she was a prosecutor. So, a lot of times, when you see those panels on there talking, you have the former prosecutors and you have defense attorneys and, sometimes just legal analysts or whatever. But, you can always kind of tell which way they're very skewed to. And when you have that on a panel, it could be as long as it's balanced, it can be good to kind of like fight out both sides, and debate it out, and it's great to hear. I think that the problem is if it's more than just a panel and it's one person being very vocal to condemn in an unfair light, I should say. Like if the information that you're giving is not accurate or is a ton of speculation that you're presenting almost like as fact, and more importantly, when your speculation is proven wrong and you don't address it, you just kind of never talk about it again, that's a problem. So I think that for any of us who talk about this in a public way, I think it's important to be mindful of what we present and how we present it, and understand that can have an impact on people, if that makes sense. So I'm still never going to like Scott Peterson. Let's be clear. Still never going to like him. No matter what comes out, I'm still never going to like him. Yes, the LA Innocence Project is separate from the Innocence Project, yes. It's two separate things. I'm still waiting to see if it comes on. It's supposed to be. Let me pull it up on this. See what else I can find. I can start us on the openings for the case that we were doing, if you want to watch that until Scott comes on, if it comes on. Let's see.
So last week,
Oops. All right. Because they finally put it up, even though they skipped it yesterday. So we can do that. And then I'll watch for it to start.
so last week we interacted, and today I'm going to basically talk at you. We're here today, and for the next week or more.
Oh, yeah, for those of you who weren't in the Karen Reed one this morning when I was talking about this, they, when we started watching this, they didn't do opening statements, and it just went straight into the first witness, which the only time we've ever seen that done on purpose was in Connecticut, and this is Florida. Florida ain't Connecticut, y'all. So we were wondering about it, but they didn't, for whatever reason, when they had the stream going yesterday, they didn't have the stream going for this. So they ended up releasing it yesterday, or this morning, whenever. They released it sometime after. So this is the openings that we didn't get to see.
To try the case of the state of Florida versus David Marshal Murdock. Kind of get back to what the judge told you in the very beginning before jury selection. Mr. Murdock is charged with 4 counts by indictment. Count 1 is the first-degree murder of Lisa Lorraine Bunce. Count 2 is attempted first-degree murder of Sanda Lee Andrews. Count 3 is burglary of a dwelling while armed with a firearm. And count 4 is discharge of a firearm into an occupied dwelling. So those are the 4 charges that you are to consider in this case. On January 5th of 2019, at approximately 1:10 a.m., there were 3 gunshots that rang out in what's called the Sweetwater community in Haines City. The Sweetwater community is a 55 and older residential neighborhood made up of local folks and also of folks that come down from places like Michigan or Illinois or Indiana or Canada. It's a self-contained area. It has its own golf course, its own clubhouse. It's gated, and it is literally a community. It's also the home to a lady that you will meet named Sanda Lee Andrews. Now, Miss Andrews, at the time, and still currently, was a Century 21 real estate agent, and actually was one of the agents that serviced that area fairly heavily.
Do you do 1.25?
And she had owned
He
her
talks
home
slow.
in the Sweetwater community since about 2003. She had originally been to Snowbird and come down from Michigan to the Toledo area for many years, and then finally decided to make that home her permanent home around 2010. After the first 3 gunshots, there were 2 more gunshots. The second 2 gunshots killed Lisa Lorraine Bunce. Multiple 911 calls were made from the neighbors who, surprisingly, were very unused to this type of activity and noise at night. Sanda Andrews lived at 373 Melbourne Drive in Haines City, again known as the Sweetwater community. It's about halfway between Lake Alfred and Haines City, south of 1792. Sanda Lee Andrews and Lisa Bunce both lay in a pool of blood. Sanda and Lisa were in the Florida room, which is the room that faces the street. Sanda had been shot through the side of the head, and the bullet went through her jaw, and actually she lost teeth that came out of the wound. Lisa, having seen the shooter, got up from her seat and attempted to run into the house. She was hit twice, once through the back of her right hand, which blew the palm of her hand out, and once in the right hip, where the projectile lodged within her. She crawled on her hands and knees through the house to hide in the rear bedroom closet. David Murdoch went into the side door and found her and shot her while she tried to hide in the closet. Both were unarmed. Both had just come home within the last half hour from a night out at a couple of bar and grill areas. Lisa and Sanda had planned on going to Fort Myers the next day. Lisa had been in town because she's a friend from Toledo and was visiting.
Happy 8 months.
David Marshal Murdock was the shooter. He was Lisa Bunce's ex-boyfriend, ex-fiance. He was apprehended in the front yard. The murder weapon was on the ground, a 9mm Glock handgun, and the slide was racked back, showing that the gun had been completely discharged, so there was nothing left. He also called 911 and said, "I just shot 2 people, 373 Melbourne Drive. I had to kill the devil." That night, Mr. Murdoch, prior to shooting Lisa and Sanda, traveled from his house down Crooked Lake Park all the way up to Haines City, north of Lake Henry, in order to shoot Lisa Bunce. It's about a 30-minute drive. He went through every stoplight. He made every turn. He got up to Haines City and had to get on to 1792. He had to code in a passcode to get into the gated community. And then he drove to Sanda Andrews' house. And she will tell you that when she saw the truck come up, she heard it abruptly stop. The driver's door flung open, and David Murdoch came out and began to shoot. But this story starts about 3 years before what happened on January 5th, 2019. It goes back for David Murdoch and Lisa Bunce to 2016. Sanda and Lisa were best friends. They had met many, many years ago in Toledo, Ohio, where Lisa is from. Sanda was from a little town in Michigan called Blissville, which is to the northwest of Toledo. And every day she would drive to Toledo for her work. And during the course of her work, she met Lisa Bunce. And they worked together for many years. Sanda's husband passed away in 2004, and she decided to become a long-distance truck driver for a few years, until she got tired of that. But she always maintained contact with Lisa Bunce. Lisa Bunce was there when Sanda's husband passed, and Lisa and her would come to Florida to stay at 373 Melbourne Drive. Well, once Sanda decided to move down to that residence in 2010, Lisa began to come to Florida very frequently to visit her friend. She would come for the holidays. She would come in the summer, and they would stay at Melbourne Drive. And Lisa became part of that Sweetwater community with Sanda's other friends, male friends, female friends, folks at the clubhouse, go out to some of the local restaurants. But by 2016, Lisa, now a snowbird coming down to visit Sanda, one fateful time went out with all the girls to a place known as Cherry Pockets, north of Lake Pierce. Cherry Pockets has a restaurant that's very popular. And on their girls' night out, there were 4 girls, and they happened to bump into 4 single guys. One of those guys was the defendant, David Marshal Murdock. Well, Lisa Bunce and David Murdoch fell for each other. And now, Lisa had another reason to come to Florida in the summer, on the holidays, and even a few times in between, to see her boyfriend, David Murdoch. That relationship developed between 2016 and 2017, to the point where by December of 2017, Lisa had moved down to Florida full-time. Now, the Sweetwater community, who had become part of Lisa's life, had a new member, David Murdoch, friends with Sanda Andrews, boyfriend of Sandra Andrews' best friend. And now, there was a lot of interaction amongst the group. The group would go out together to dinner. They would go out and do social things, concerts, dinners, barbecues at each other's houses. And in May of 2017, after having lived at Cherry Pockets for a number of years, which is where Mr. Murdoch met Lisa Bunce, they decided to get a bigger house, a nicer house, their own place. And in May of 2017, the defendant, David Marshal Murdoch, bought the residence at 370 First Street North in Lake Wales, which is off of Crooked Lake. And that was going to be their home together. Now, interestingly enough, Sanda Andrews, as a real estate agent, helped find and facilitate the purchase of this property. And this was going to be their dream home. Lisa moved her son down from Toledo, and the 3 of them lived in this location. They hosted barbecues. They traveled to the Sweetwater community to hang out with Sanda and her friends, and ended up with mutual friends between all of them. And at that time, life was good. They were even engaged at the time. By July of 2018, things were not working out as well as they had. Some people call that the honeymoon phase was over. Lisa realized that things were not working out. She and Mr. Murdoch had their differences. They had their fallings out. They tried counseling. All of this was known to Sanda and many of the folks that they had become part of as a community. But things didn't seem to get better. So Lisa Bunce decided in July of 2018 that she was going to rent a U-Haul and pack up her stuff and head to Toledo. Take her son, put him back in school, and leave Mr. Murdoch in Florida.
These are openings because they didn't play them yesterday.
Well, Mr. Murdoch was unaware that Lisa was not going to come back and that she was going to sever the relationship. But in her mind, it was the easiest and safest way to leave without any more issues. They would deal with this from afar. And that's what happened. When Mr. Murdoch realized that his relationship with Lisa was over, he was very upset. He immediately demanded that she take her name off of the house. He filed suit in small claims court claiming that she had borrowed money and he wanted it back. Lisa finally had an injunction in Toledo to keep Mr. Murdoch from calling. Mr. Murdoch filed an injunction in Polk County. So to kind of sum it up, the two of them had quite a falling out back in the middle of 2018. So Sanda, who was a mutual friend, kind of became the go-between from time to time. And she would communicate to Lisa that the defendant wanted to talk to Lisa about the house or talk to her about whatever other issues. And at some point, even Sanda threw her hands up and said, I don't want to be in the middle of this anymore. Particularly, the defendant was interested in Lisa Bunce signing over the deed so that her name was off of the property. Sanda had told, and she will testify, the defendant, don't put her name on the property. You're not married yet. But they were so in love that he insisted her name go on the property. Now, at the time that this is happening, the defendant began a new relationship with a lady named Cynthia Lynn McClure. Now, that relationship began in August, about 2-3 weeks after the breakup with Lisa. Ms. McClure will testify. She was an RN of about 35 years or so. She's retired now from the Winter Haven Hospital. And she was enamored with her Southern gentleman boyfriend. And that relationship continued from August to December. And when Mr. Murdoch wasn't working out of state, budding plants, which is his profession, grafting, different types of citrus, things of that nature, he was spending his time with Ms. McClure. And keep in mind that all these issues with Lisa are kind of going on in the background. Well, that relationship continued through August, September, October, November, and December. Now, the defendant would tell his new girlfriend about his ex and the problems he was having, the issues that he would have because Lisa wouldn't sign the lease over. And on New Year's Eve of 2018, the defendant and his girlfriend went to a local nightclub bar called the New Grove Lounge off of 27 in Dundee. It's now called the Out and About Bar, but back in at the time of this, it was called the New Grove.
He's about to say back in
and that was a popular place with folks maybe in their 50s and 60s. It's exciting enough to go out to, but it's not a crazy place that you got to worry. So that was going to be the New Year's Eve. The defendant, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's elderly parents. Sanda and the Sweetwater crew were also frequenters of the New Grove. And while they were there, sitting at different tables, not really interacting, but there was Sanda, Lisa, and the Sweetwater crew. Across the aisle was the defendant, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's parents. And Sanda will tell you that that night, the defendant got up and went to the bathroom many, many, many times. Ms. McClure will tell you that the defendant wouldn't take his eyes off of Lisa Bunce. You can imagine how Ms. McClure took that. She was fairly unhappy because she knew who Lisa Bunce was. So that evening ended in a bit of a disagreement between the defendant and his new girlfriend. And for the next next 3 or 4 days, Ms. McClure and Mr. Murdoch, the defendant, sort of patched things up. Gee, didn't mean to stare, we can get back together, things are going to be okay. But Ms. McClure had a gut feeling that maybe the defendant hadn't lost his feelings for Lisa Bunce. And by Friday night, after talking with different folks, keep in mind, we've got this group of folks that goes out together, Lynn McClure found out that Mr. Murdoch had been texting Lisa Bunce on New Year's Eve, not just staring. You look beautiful tonight. I'm glad you're having a good time. Me and Lynn, we're over. She's jealous. And when Mr. Murdoch found out that Lynn McClure had been sent these messages by the Sweetwater crew, he was furious. So at around 12:30 on the early morning of January 5th, Mr. Murdoch got into his pickup truck with his Glock 9mm and drove from Crooked Lake all the way up to Haines City to the Sweetwater community and punched in a code. During that trip, phone records show that he attempted to call Sanda Andrews, that he attempted to call a couple other folks that were in the Sweetwater community. And at 1:08, you will see a video of Mr. Murdoch's truck and Mr. Murdoch punching in the code at the Sweetwater gate. And it's within 4 minutes that the gunshots are fired at Sanda. Sanda and Lisa were sitting on the front porch of Sanda's home. Front porch is facing the road down here on the bottom. Sanda was seated in this chair, Lisa was seated here. The defendant pulled his truck up and stopped with the driver's side facing the home. They had just gotten home from a night out from 2 locations. One is called the Apple in Winter Haven, and then the New Grove, where the incident with the disagreement about New Year's Eve happened. So by about 12:48 in the morning, they had arrived home, kind of got their comfortable clothes on, read a book. Lisa would smoke a cigarette, wasn't allowed to do that in the house. That's when the defendant pulled up. Now, there was no fight, there was no argument. There was Sanda seeing the defendant pull up and say, "David, you don't belong here. I'm going to call 911." And that's when the first shot rang out. Right next to her head through a screen on the floor of the room. Now, this door here is a screen door, but it's glass, and it's always locked because Sanda has a cat and doesn't want anybody to push the door and get the cat to run out in the yard. So you couldn't get in that door. Immediately at the first shot, Lisa jumps up to run away, and that's when she's hit. Her blood, forensically, her first blood spots are right inside the door. The second shot goes through the side of Sanda's head and out her mouth, discharging one of her teeth and knocking her from this chair onto the floor, where she begins to bleed out of the mouth. Now, at this point, she doesn't know what's happening. It's so shocking. There's a third shot. The glass from that sliding glass door shatters. And as the bullet goes through the glass, it takes those little tiny shards of that kind of glass like cars have that breaks into the tempered glass, those little teeny pieces like little diamonds, and it sends those pieces in the same direction as the bullet, so that Lisa's body is covered with bruises from those glass shards traveling near the speed of that projectile. Lisa then, from forensics we know, falls on the ground and begins to crawl, smearing her blood from the family room all the way down the hall in an attempt to get away from being shot anymore. She's been shot twice, once in the right rear hip and once through her right hand. Sanda Andrews is on 911, and you will hear her call and say, help me. I've been shot. David Murdoch shot me. She is communicating on that 911 call with a bullet hole through her mouth, with 37 fractures.
I haven't heard it yet.
And she's still able to somehow articulate, albeit difficult to hear, who shot and what happened. Meanwhile, the defendant knows that the side door under the carport is always unlocked. He's been part of the community and been to this house many times. Lisa has now crawled into the back bedroom and stood up. And we know that because the blood on the floor goes from smeared to drops. So she's done crawling and gets up. Her blood-covered hand opens the closet door in the master bedroom, where she goes inside and tries to hide. The door is covered in her blood. It's running down the door jambs. It's on the knob, and she's hiding inside the closet. When the defendant comes through this back hall, it's pretty obvious from the blood trail that someone has been through. And he turns into the bedroom and finds Lisa Bunch in the master bedroom closet. And at that point, he fires 2 more times at point-blank range. One of the bullets misses and goes through the wall and actually comes out through the hallway and lodges into the floor. The other shot goes through Lisa Bunce's left arm, out the left arm, and into the chest cavity, where it goes right through her vital organs, and she collapses in the master bedroom. The defendant's gun is tested against the 5 shell casings. The 3 shots here in the corner and the 2 shots in the closet by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And those 5 shell casings came and were fired by that firearm forensically. There were 2 slugs taken out of Lisa Bunce's body, the one that penetrated the hip and the one that went through, the fatal shot that went through into her vital organs. The bullet that went through the hip was too deformed to be able to test, but the fatal shot that went through and lodged in her chest cavity was able to be forensically tested against David Murdoch's gun, and it too was ballistically matched specifically to that weapon. In addition, the weapon that was recovered in the driveway had Lisa Bunce's DNA on the slide, the top part, presumably from blowback. The defendant's DNA was on the grip and on the trigger. The defendant's home was searched, that house down on Crooked Lake, and there they found the case to a Glock with the same serial number on it as exists on the serial number of the gun. The detectives went to Tim's Guns and found that Mr. Murdoch had in fact purchased that exact weapon in 2015. Santa Andrews survived, and you will hear from her about what happened there. Lisa Bunce did not.
Her testimony was really
This is a
impactful.
roadmap of what the state believes you will hear. And the facts that I have told you this morning, again, what I say is not evidence, but I believe the state will prove every one of those facts. And it will show that when David Murdoch, the defendant, came up to the house, he shot into an occupied dwelling. And that when he shot Santa Andrews and squeezed that trigger 3 times, he intended to kill. And but for the grace, she did not die. The evidence will show that when he entered this house, and actually even the curtilage of the house, the areas surrounding it, including covered carports, that he went into that house with the intent to finish the job that he went there to do, which was to kill Lisa Bunce. That's burglary with a firearm. And finally, when Lisa Bunce was killed, state believes that that evidence will show you that that was a premeditated intent, a first-degree murder, to leave from your house 30 minutes away and drive to a location with a handgun and immediately begin discharging it. State of Florida versus David Marshal Murdock. The 4 counts that he is charged with by indictment. At the end of the evidence, the state will ask that you return a verdict of guilty as charged to each and every one of those crimes, and believes that you will find during the course of the evidence that there is no reasonable doubt that David Marshal Murdock, the defendant in this case, committed each one of those crimes beyond and to the exclusion of every reason.
Okay, I want to find, that was the prosecution. I want to find the defense, because the defense is, what can your defense be? I mean, honestly, what could it be? All right, let's see. All right, here we go. Let's see.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. David Murdoch was trying to build a life. David Marshal Murdock was trying to build a life with Lisa Bunce. As you've heard, in 2016, David Murdoch lived in Haines City, Florida. And Lisa Bunce would travel from Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, and come to Florida and visit with her family and her friends and stay here. And by happenstance, in February of 2016, both Lisa Bunce and her group of friends and Mr. Murdoch and his group of friends happened to be at Cherry Pines, which is kind of like a fish camp in Haines City. And David Murdoch and Lisa Bunce began to talk. They liked each other. They spent, I think it was about a week or so together when Miss Bunce was down from Ohio, forming a relationship, forming a bond. And then they began a long-distance relationship from Ohio to Florida, and Miss Bunce would travel from Ohio to Florida to spend time with both her friends and Mr. Murdoch. They started a relationship, a bond, a friendship, a mutual respect for one another. And they fell in love. And eventually they got engaged. And when Mr. Murdoch was trying to build this life with Miss Bunce, he wanted to give her security and love and respect. He bought a home. He sold his home in Haines City. He purchased a home in Lake Wales, where they both would start that new life together.
She really just tried to say he wanted to give her respect.
And he used the proceeds from his house in Haines City and bought the house in Lake Wales, borrowed from family members in order to raise the money to purchase that home, to start that new life with Lisa Bunce. And then in December of 2017, Lisa Bunce moved into that home with Mr. Murdoch. Mr. Murdoch, so in love, so wanting to, he's finally found his life partner, the partner that he's going to spend the rest of his days with, puts Lisa Bunce's name on the deed of the house. Miss Bunce, at that point in time, had been estranged from her husband, was still going through a divorce, puts her name on the deed to the house, wanting to start a life, thinking he had found his life partner. And then 6 months, 7 months later, Miss Bunce rents a U-Haul, brings that group of friends with her to move out her things, along with some of Mr. Murdoch's things as well. And Mr. Murdoch actually is assisting in helping load this U-Haul, thinking that he's going to shortly follow Miss Bunce to Ohio and live together happily in Ohio. He actually celebrated, had a social gathering that same day that Miss Bunce was loading up that U-Haul. And then she left.
I'm like already looking to see if it's almost over.
And then Mr. Murdoch gets a text from Miss Bunce, breaking the relationship, severing the relationship. Mr. Murdoch's heart was broken. He was devastated. He was humiliated.
Then he shouldn't
I
have
ask
been
that
beating on her.
each and every one of you, because your job from now forward is not for what I'm saying or the state saying, but it's to judge the evidence, listen to the evidence, listen to all of the witnesses' testimony. because you're going to be able to judge that and weigh that at the end of the case. And let me also say this, it is not lost upon the parties, the attorneys, the court, that you have expended not only a large amount of your time thus far, but will be expending a large amount of your time listening to the evidence in this case. And we appreciate that. Because at the end of this case, I'm going to stand before you once again and ask that you not find Mr. Murdoch guilty of premeditated murder. And we submit that the facts will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toomey.
So, from what I gather, what do I know? But from what I gather, it seems like the defense's goal here is to convince the jury that it's not premeditated. I don't think that there's anybody who, I mean, and by I don't think, I mean there's no way on God's green earth that anybody could look at this and think, you know what, maybe he didn't do it. So I think that the best that she can hope for is to convince the jury that maybe it wasn't premeditated, you know, like heat of passion, heartbroken and reacted, etc. So I think that's kind of the only thing that she can really go for at this point, because what else is there? We know he did it. So if they can prove, if she can create the doubt in the jury's mind that it is not premeditated, then, you know, she may be able to keep him from death row. So Lisa Dempsey gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome to our new members. I appreciate it. Lisa Dempsey, showing the love. Y'all are the best. All right, we're going to do 1.25 speed.
All right, we're back on the record. Mr. Murdoch is present with both lawyers and his investigator. Both lawyers for the state are present. The jurors are being lined up.
The thing about the premeditation, yeah, he drove out there and pulled up, guns a-blazing. So premeditation does not have to mean this was planned for a long time. It means that you made a decision and then you acted on it. So he drove out there. I mean, he wasn't going out there to try to talk things out. You don't go try to talk things out with a gun drawn, shooting your friends and stuff, so. Oops. This is what I love about speed trial, and skip through this. What are we waiting on?
May have not concerned you in any way. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. Statement called Dwight Rogers.
All right, first witness.
Mr. Alley over here will be assisting today with court security.
I like how they're pointing out the security. I did that yesterday too.
Step up here, you're going to be able to raise your right hand. Sworn by the clerk.
Oh, he looks dapper.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Morning. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jury your name?
My name is Dwight Rogers.
And Mr. Rogers, were you previously employed by the Haines City Police Department?
Yes, sir.
How long were you employed by Haines City?
5 years.
And you were no longer employed at Haines City?
I'm retired, yes, sir.
Okay. You're retired?
Yes.
And is that because you aged out, or were you retired for another reason?
Another reason.
Okay. Did that have to do with your physical injury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Back on January 5th of 2019 in the early morning hours, were you on duty and working for Haines City Police?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what your duties were at that time.
My duty at that time was to respond to calls within the jurisdiction or help any other agencies that need help assistance.
And do you recall where you responded that night as it relates to this case?
Yes, sir.
Where was that?
I referred to my report the actual address, but it was an address in Davenport, close to our jurisdiction.
Okay. And you do have a copy of your report?
Yes, sir.
All right. If I was to say 737 Melbourne Drive in Haines City in Sweetwater subdivision, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
And tell us what you did when you got there. What did you see and what did you do?
When I arrived on the scene, I seen a gentleman on the ground. At the same time, I hear a female screaming for help in the front patio. I approached the gentleman. I noticed a gun on his side, so I pretty much advised him do not reach for the gun. If not, I will use deadly force. Once a deputy arrived on scene, detained him. I went to the residence, entered, and I noticed once I entered inside the residence.
Let me back up for a second. You heard the lady calling, or where was that location?
She was on the porch.
Right. Did you attempt to gain entrance to the porch?
Yes.
And were you able to do that?
No.
Why not?
The door's locked for some reason.
So that porch door or that floor room door was locked?
Yes.
What did you do?
Went to the other door. I was advised by a neighbor that there was an additional door where I can gain entry into the residence.
All right. And I'm going to show you what's previously been entered into evidence as Exhibit 1. See if you recognize this as the residence that you approached.
Yes.
All right. And the door that you're talking about, can you see that open door in the stairway right there that you attempted to go into?
Yes, sir.
All right. And could you show us where it is? And then I'm going to put it up on the thing.
This door right here.
Okay. I do that because sometimes it's hard to see way over there. So I'm putting Exhibit 1 up on the overhead. So this is the residence that you arrived at.
Yes, sir.
And I think while I was up close to you, the door that you said was locked was this front one right here that is currently open.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, you indicated there was another entrance that you were able to get into.
Yes, sir.
And where, if we were to look at the picture, I know you probably can't see it, but where would that have been located?
It'd be in front of the white vehicle.
So somewhere over here in front of the white vehicle?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was that door locked or unlocked?
Unlocked.
So what did you do?
Entered the residence. Once I entered, I noticed there was a blood smear on the floor. I went towards the back of the residence to clear out the residence for safety reasons. Once I entered the master bedroom, I looked to my left and I noticed there was a foot hanging outside of a closet. I went to that foot and I noticed there was a female laying on the shoeboxes. There was urine, what I perceived to be urine on the floor, and she was lifeless. I tried to do a serum rub. I checked her pulse. There was no pulse, and she did not respond to the serum rub.
What did you do after that?
After that, I went towards the front of the residence to try to assist with the female who was screaming. Once I arrived on scene, but she was already being treated by paramedics.
Okay. So did you go out back the same way you came in, or did you go through the front to try to open the door from the other side?
Through the front, try to open the door.
All right. Do you have any other involvement in the case?
Once the deputy arrived and detectives arrived, I have no other involvement for this case.
Thank you very much.
Ross?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So when you arrived, was Lieutenant Baldwin or anyone with Polk County Sheriff's Office on scene yet?
When I first arrived, no.
And when you arrived, you saw a male sitting on the ground by the lamppost in the front of the residence?
Yes.
And if I could just...
This is the next one.
So the lamppost we see, which is off to the right in this photograph, the white male that you described or you indicated was sitting by the lamppost in that picture.
In that area.
Yes. In that area.
Yes,
What do you know what this marker is over here?
I do not know.
You do not know. And this person was sitting on the ground?
Yes.
And at that point, you directed the person to lie on the ground,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Place their hands up and then lie on the ground.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they ever get up?
No.
So I think you were also with another officer of your agency as well. Do you
No, it's
recall?
a PCS deputy.
Okay,
He
so by
was
the,
second, I think.
sorry, I'm sorry.
He was second. I was first on scene. He was the second on scene.
Okay, and would that would have been Deputy Rojas?
I'll have to report to my report to look at his name.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you arrive first, Rojas arrives after you,
Yes, ma'am.
and Deputy Rojas is said to stay with the individual that was found sitting by the lamppost
Yes, ma'am.
while you entered the residence.
Yes, ma'am.
And you entered the residence because someone had told you there's another way of getting inside the residence,
Yes, our neighbor, yes.
a neighbor. And that would have been Ronald Blackmore?
Not sure his name after the first report for his name.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Try to adjust a little bit
Yes,
so we
ma'am.
could actually see.
Now, you testified on direct that you saw the male that was sitting by the lamppost, and that you also saw a female victim or victim that was by the Florida room or the porch.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that you first saw the white male that was sitting by the lamppost, that you went through the house, and then when you exited the house, that's the point in time that you saw the female that was lying in between the door and the lanai? Does that make sense?
No, can you rephrase that, please?
Sure, that was an awful question. What point in time did you first see the female that had been shot?
Which one?
The one on the porch?
I noticed her when I first arrived on the scene because she was screaming for help.
Okay. When you're trained as an
Sam.
officer by the police department, you're trained to document a report, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the purpose of documenting all of the things that you do and hear and see is so that years later, your memory can be refreshed if you forget, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which you've done multiple times this morning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where, where in your report did you indicate that you heard this female screaming for help or yelling for help?
Or refer that to my report.
Yes.
This is today. Now we're back to
You
today.
did not.
No.
And that would have been something important that you would have put in your report, right?
Looking back at it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks.
Although it looks like her outfit looks very similar, but
You're
this
right.
is today.
Just a couple of questions. I'll go backwards. I'll start with the last thing that Ms. Toomey asked you and move ahead. That particular question about whether or not you heard the female or you documented it in your report, as you sit here today, you do specifically remember that person screaming.
Yes, sir.
And if there was other evidence that that person was screaming, that would corroborate what you independently remember.
Yes, sir.
Now, as a patrol officer, do you work homicides all the time back in the day with Haines City?
Yes.
Okay. This particular incident, did this one stand out for any particular reason in your mind?
Yes.
Why is that?
This was my first homicide as a rookie officer.
Okay. So the senses, the sounds, the smells, the sights, this is something that you recall this incident specifically?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go and back up just a little bit when the defense asked you about the white male in the front yard. That individual, when you approached him, you indicated that you demanded that he go from the sitting position and lay down, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did he comply with you?
Yes, sir.
So you apparently understood what you were saying.
Yes, sir.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Is this witness released?
Yes.
Ms. Toomey?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next witness?
Tracy Wright.
I know her outfit does look similar to yesterday. So a second ago I looked and I was like,
You
wait,
solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Good morning. proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please tell the jury your name?
Tracy Wright,
And would you please spell both your first and last name?
TRACYWRIGHT.
Would you please tell us what you do for a living?
I'm a crime scene investigator.
And I'm going to ask you to speak up just a little bit because we got folks way down the end over here. And who are you employed by?
The Polk County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed by the Polk County Sheriff's Office?
About 23 years.
Do you know an individual named Linda Hill?
Yes.
Did you used to work with her?
Yes.
And did you work with her for many years?
Yes.
At the time she was with the Sheriff's Department, did she do the same type of work that you do?
Yes.
Now, with regard to this scene, I guess my first question is, what role were you assigned as the crime scene investigator in this case?
I was the lead crime scene investigator.
And how is that determined who is the lead on a particular scene?
It just depends. If the other person has a lot of reports out and stuff like that, and I'm caught up, then I'll take the call, take the lead.
Okay. And as the lead crime scene investigator on a scene, what is your responsibility?
So we photograph the entire scene, we collect the evidence, we document the scene.
Now, are there often times when other crime scene investigators will assist you?
Yes.
And in this case, did you have assistance?
Yes.
But your role was the lead crime scene investigator?
Yes.
Now, we learned a little bit yesterday about what crime scene investigators do and that there is a protocol for that. Could you tell us a little bit about what the protocol is when you get onto a scene like what we're going to talk about in this case?
So we begin first by photographing the scene. We want to document everything we can as we see it when we get there. And then we take measurements, and then we start collecting evidence and packaging evidence.
Why do you take all the photographs first before you touch anything?
Because we want to show it as it is when we see it when we get there.
Is there a particular method for packaging evidence once you recover it and take custody of it?
What do you mean?
Is there a particular protocol for packaging different types of evidence that you may pick up at a crime scene?
Yes.
So give us an example of what are the types of things that are taken into consideration when you package evidence that you recover?
So if we have like spent casings or that type of thing, we try to put it in a, it's changed now, but we put it like in a paper envelope. We try to put anything like that might have, go to the lab or do DNA or anything to be in paper, whether it be a box or a bag.
Okay. So part of the packaging, there is a method to preserving the integrity of the piece of evidence so that it can be tested.
Yes.
Like you don't pick stuff up with your bare hands. Okay. I've seen that on Hawaii Five-0. And in this case, did you follow all of the protocols that are outlined by your agency and in your line of work?
Yes.
So what I want to do now is go through some of the photographs that you took. And I'm going to start with, it's in sections to make it easier, and some of these have already been admitted into evidence, but since you were the primary, I'm going to give them to you. This is, for the record, this is States Exhibits 1 through 21, and I want you to look through those. Try to keep them in that strange order of some are sticking up and some are sticking down, because that delineates which has already been placed into evidence.
I wish we could see the pictures. Here, let's have a little look at the beach. It's a
All
pretty
right, so
day
you've had a
out.
chance to look through those?
Yes.
With regard to all of those exhibits, do you recognize what they are?
Yes.
What are they?
Photos from the scene.
And are they fair and accurate photos?
Yes.
At this time, I would ask that States Exhibits 1A, 8 through 11, and Exhibit 20 be admitted as full exhibits.
Not 21.
I believe,
I thought you
I'm sorry, and 21, yes.
Any objection?
If I could just briefly.
Would you show this to me?
Sorry. I'll give you the next step first.
will be received.
And obviously, for housekeeping purposes, I can't reintroduce something into evidence, so you'll have to apologize that we're going through this piecemeal. We're going to do this a couple more times, and then we'll go through all the exhibits, okay?
Okay.
It's Panama City Beach. You should, Jessica.
Now I'm going to show you what's previously been marked for purposes of identification and or introduced into evidence. States Exhibits 22 through 51. And the ones I'd like you to focus on are the ones that are standing up. Well, you can look at all of them. Again, I'm going to ask you the same question when you're done.
Oh my goodness gracious.
All fair and accurate depictions of the crime scene that you took that evening?
Yes.
This time I'd ask that States Exhibits 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, States Exhibit 33.
One, I believe, is in evidence, correct? Any objection?
Now I'm going to show you, the pile's thinner, by the way. Exhibit, if you read,
They're just entering in a bunch of evidence right now.
of the photographs that you took on the during your investigation in this case.
Yes.
This time I'd ask that States Exhibits 53, 54, 56, and 58 be admitted as full exhibits.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
They will be received.
Showing you Exhibits 59 through 82. If you do the same thing, take a look at those and tell me if you recognize what they are.
This is what I love about speed trialing.
Yes.
This time 62, 61, 75, 84. States Exhibits 80.
Come on.
An opportunity to look through States Exhibits.
Dining room.
The night that you were 90 admitted as full.
What sucks is that they're about to go through all these pictures that it's taken them so long to get entered in. They're about to go through them and we're not going to be able to see them.
Housekeeping out of the way. Let's get to the what you did with the photographs. All right. I'm going to show you Exhibit 109 that's already been introduced into evidence and ask if you have seen this diagram before.
Yes.
And is that a fair depiction, maybe not to scale, of the residents at 373 Melbourne Drive in Haines City?
Yes.
And are the photographs that you've taken, that you've reviewed, are they photographs that were taken within that location that we can identify approximately where the photographs were taken to help the jury understand kind of the layout? What I've done, and this is for demonstrative purposes only, Exhibit 109 is also been blown up so that we can simultaneously use the overhead as well as this for purposes of demonstrative illustration. Right. If it would be helpful, or would the court permit the witnesses to stand down? She may. As long as you can see what we're doing, let me give you a little pointer. How's that? Now, some of these the jury has seen before, but they might not know the relationship of where things are. And you indicated that you took a lot of these photographs.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the scene and what you collected. So looking at Exhibit 1, where was that taken from? Again, we can see the picture, but we're also making a record. So just looking at the picture doesn't describe where it was taken from.
Right. So this would be the front, off the roadway. So the road is right here, and this is the porch.
Okay, since we can't see any of these, do you want
And
to just
if you were now
skip through
to
this
look-
part?
Well, let's continue looking at Exhibit 1. There appears to be a couple of little yellow things in the front yard. What are those?
Those are items of evidence.
And tell us what the little cards are. Is that something that you carry with you, or what is that?
You mean the marker numbers?
Yes.
Yes, we carry them.
And what's the purpose of those? Obviously, there's kind of an obvious reason, but tell us what that is.
To document the crime scene, and so you can easily tell. You can see, if I didn't have the markers, you wouldn't be able to see where the items were.
Okay. And also, does that keep people from stepping on them?
Yes.
Or kicking them and moving them some other way?
Yes.
Is it also a way for you to document in your report where a particular item was located? You can peek in there, just don't stand there too long so people can see.
Oh, I have to look at my map thing I have.
Anything before the break?
Not to this day.
All right.
Looks like she goes until they take a break. I think Scott Peterson's starting in just a minute. They keep saying coming up.
Now to making team.
All right, if you want to come back on down here and get the pointer. Further into the house. I think you previously indicated that there were a number of things that you collected at the time you entered into the house. And some things were physical, and some things I believe you said were swabs.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you, excuse me, referring you to the sort of the lower left quadrant. This was a cell phone, a pair of glasses. I think you indicated this was apparent blood.
Yes.
It'd be different if we could see the pictures, but we can't, so.
Right. Yes. But this is the same closet that we're talking about right here where her body was found.
Yes.
Blood pattern analysis.
Let's hear what defense has to say.
What's been entered as state's exhibit number 5. In that photograph, you see markers 3, 4, and 5, right?
Yes.
And prior to your marking these specific areas, do you know whether or not anything in that area had been moved by prior deputies accidentally?
No, I don't.
And with regards to marker number 3, that would have been a spent casing, which was a CBC 9mm casing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, if I can publish. Would you agree with me that that spent casing is a brass casing?
I don't know for sure.
Which exhibit is that?
This is exhibit, I'm sorry, 262.
I'm putting her at 1.5 speed. We'll see if she gets to anything that matters.
Yes. And then with regards to marker 5 and 6, which would be exhibit 263 and
They talk so slow.
264, would you agree with me that those casings are not brass, but of some other metal?
Yes.
Probably aluminum.
But they're not brass.
Permission to publish. So markers 5 and 4 are not brass casings. Correct? And once again, you when you collected these casings, you had no idea whether or not they had been moved accidentally or otherwise. Correct. Now you also testified that you had collected, I think it was 2 casings in the closet in the master bedroom.
Yes.
Does your report reflect that you collected 2 casings or 1 casing?
2.
What page would that be?
That is on. Page 24.
All right, let me just go back to the casings. The aluminum casings or the silver and color casings, those are a different brand of ammunition, would you agree?
Yes.
Than the brass casing?
Yes.
All right. And then the 2 in the closet, you said 24, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Page 24?
4. The second paragraph.
Car chase.
The second paragraph, I'm sorry, you could direct me because
Right beneath the bullet markings, not the first paragraph, but the second one.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. So you collected 2 spent casings in the closet of the bedroom.
Yes.
All right. And one of those casings, which would be State's Exhibit 274, which would have been a CVC 9mm casing, which would have been a brass casing.
Yes.
All right. And then the other one, the 276, would have been an FC 9mm casing, which would not have been brass.
Correct.
Polished and polished. So once again, these 2 casings are not of the same metal. One's brass, one's something else.
Yes.
Probably aluminum, but we don't.
Live car chase.
And would it also be fair to say that when you collected these casings, you did not know whether or not they had been moved?
Correct.
All right. And would you also agree with me that you're not an expert in blood pattern analysis?
Correct. I've seen a lot of it through the years, but I'm not an expert.
Now, you also talked about various swabs, and the state introduced various swabs that were taken of blood at the scene, right? How many swabs did you take in the crime scene, would you say?
Do you want me to count? Through my
Sure.
quite a few. Let me see. 1 second.
Oh, he got around. Look, he's running that red light. Oh.
18.
18 swabs?
Yes.
Oh, dang.
I'm sorry, what was the number of swabs you took?
18.
18 swabs of various doorknobs, apparent blood on the carpet, apparent blood on the floor, and then apparent blood on the walls and things of that nature inside the residence, right?
Yes.
Did you ever take a swab of the doorknob or the latch on the door leading into that second doorway in the screened-in area, not the lanai or the Florida room,
right,
but the other door?
No.
Did you ever take a swab of the door handle on the storm door?
No.
And I think you had testified on direct that you took hundreds of photographs, right?
Yes.
And you take hundreds of photographs, not only to document the general scene itself, right?
Yes.
But then you also take photographs to document specific items that you believe are of evidentiary value.
Oh. Oh, he's about to run. He's about to run.
And this is State's Exhibit 84B. I'm going to turn that upside down. This photograph was taken by yourself, correct?
Yes.
And this is a photograph of a book that was found inside the residence that says, or is titled, After You Shoot,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. And then you also
They lost him.
took a photograph, and this is going to be Exhibit 84C, a photograph of another book, which was under that initial book that you took, which is titled Basic Pistol Operation in Firearm Safety, right?
Yes.
Police are there.
And then 84D, State's Exhibit 84D, which was another book under that second book, right, which is titled Your First Gun, right?
Yep.
Now, you also collected a cell phone that was actually 2 cell phones, right, in the residence.
I think there were 3.
Was it
Is that
3?
him?
Okay. 2 in the residence and 1 in the vehicle? Or something different?
One was outside, one was on the porch, and one was on the kitchen counter.
Thank you, yes. One in the grass, right?
Yes.
And then 2 inside the residence.
Yes.
Did you also notice the 2 laptops that were on the kitchen table?
Yes.
Inside the residence?
Yes.
Were those collected?
No.
Did you know that Miss Sanda Andrews had a cat?
No.
If you had to look through the photographs that were taken by yourself, would that refresh your recollection as to whether or not there was anything that would have indicated to you that she had a cat?
I recall when I was reviewing my photographs for trial, I saw a litter box.
Who cares about the
Which
cat?
would be indicative of someone having a cat, right?
Yes.
Oh, they got him down.
How are you taught or how are you trained to pack a cell phone?
We put them in paper bags.
Okay, so you put them in paper bags, and then where do they go?
Then we either send them to our property section or the detective retrieves them from our office. We have a locker that we keep them in that they pick them up from.
And then the diagram that was being utilized by yourself, which is very helpful in this case. Is this a diagram that you helped create?
No.
Did you create a diagram with measurements?
I created a diagram of the interior and the exterior.
And how is the diagram that you created different than this diagram, which is exhibit, it's not introduced. 109, excuse me, 109.
My diagram just has where the markers were.
Okay, so your diagram has the markers. What about the measurements that you took